Well, it came as a surprise yesterday when we got a copy of the letter that KG Urban sent to the Gaming Commission saying that it was withdrawing its application. And we had been under the understanding that this deal was financeable, that they could raise the money to build the casino and operate it. Their KG's managing partner, Barry Gosson, all along has said, well, we can finance this thing, no problem. Went in front of the Gaming Commission, sat next to me and said that all we needed was 45 days and the financing would be all buttoned up. That was back in March, and sent a letter in following up on that saying, we have all of our financing in place, and to the extent that any of it falls out, we'll pick up the tab. So we proceeded with that understanding. We were led to believe that they could do it, so we went ahead and signed the host community agreement. Worked very, very hard, as you know, to get a deal that worked very well for New Bedford. We're very proud of that. We're very proud we went to bat for the community. The community did a great job asking all the right questions along the way, voted in support of it. Some 73% of New Bedford voters voted favorably for this project just a couple of weeks ago. And now we learned that they can't finance the project. So it's very disappointing, no doubt about it. And I'm as much as I'm disappointed personally for all the work that we put into this and how I think we could have won this license, I'm more disappointed for the residents of our city who've been put through an awful lot and have had their hopes dashed. What I will say, though, on the bright side, and there is a bright side here, that fortunately there are a lot of things going very, very well in the city right now. We've talked about them. There's growth in the downtown, there's growth in the port, there's growth in the industrial park. If you've been in the downtown in the last couple of weeks, you've seen just how vibrant things are, larger and larger crowds all the time. People feel optimistic overall about the city. And so, the key right now, really, to my mind, is look, we're all disappointed, but we can't be demoralized. We can't say, well, this is always going to happen to New Bedford. They're always going to stick it to us. At the end of the day, we control our own fate. There may be things that we can't control. We can't control a casino developer from getting its financing or not. And look, at some point, we're going to just have to move on from that. But what we can control ultimately is putting plans in place to grow our city, and we have those plans in place and continuing to drive those plans to build on our assets, the port, the downtown, and it's working, and we just have to continue at it. A lot of times, people look at a project like this and say, well, that would have been a home run, and it would have been a home run, and sometimes you have to swing for the fences. And knowing that sometimes you might not connect, and you might not connect for reasons that are outside of our control. But it's the singles and doubles that we're getting right now that are really starting to add up. And so we've got to do both. When there's an opportunity to hit a home run, we've got to go after it, even if there is a risk of failure. We can't say, oh, don't go after the casino, don't go after the Olympics, don't go after other things because we might fail at it. That's not the way that I operate here. It's not the way I operate in my own personal life. If there's an opportunity, even if it's one that's not guaranteed, if it makes sense, you got to go after it and do it aggressively, and that's what we did here. Well, there's probably a lot of reasons. So one of them is the Indian possibility, right? The Mashpee Wampanoag tribe might build in Taunton. But that's been known all along. I think a lot of investors, from what I'm hearing, and I haven't been in the middle of financing talks, these are talks between private business and private investors, but my understanding is that there's been some reluctance because of the Indian question, some reluctance because of the size of the cleanup, and then some reluctance because of the size of the market here. Under the Expanded Gaming Act in Massachusetts, any casino developer has to invest a minimum of $500 million and then pay an $85 million license fee on top of that. So it's a huge investment, and that investment can only be viable in a market that is robust enough to support it. And so there have been questions about that in the Southeast. That's why I was skeptical for a long time whether this could be done. Certain city councilors have said, well, if you'd only negotiated earlier, and let me address that because I think it is important to address. KG did not have an operator lined up. And if you look around the state, the companies that were looking to build casinos were casino operators. And they could, in other words, they're the people, whether it's Hard Rock, whether it's MGM, or Mohegan Sun. They're the folks that actually run casinos. What was different here is that KG was just a real estate developer, and they didn't have a real operator in place until January when Foxwood said, well, we're willing to join in with you. And so, to my mind, we weren't going to jump in and do a host community agreement with a real estate developer who could bring in anybody, bad operator, good operator, we don't know. We'd be going into it blindly. And it would have been irresponsible of me to say, to have jumped in. It would have been like going to a car dealership and buying a car from the dealership and then the salesman saying, okay, I'll go pick out the car for you now. It wouldn't have made any sense at all. It would have been irresponsible. Once they had that operator in place, we started talking to them, and that's what led to this host community agreement, along with their assurances that they had their financing in place. So I just want people to understand that, how we went about it. You know, part of my job is when you have something like this come into town, you have to work through the hype and really get down to brass tacks and really make a determination of what's real and what's not real. So there's a scenario in which the Gaming Commission says, you know, we shouldn't issue just yet a license in Region C, and in which case they can call timeout. And if there are casino operators that might have interest here, either on the waterfront or the golf course site, we're game for it. So the door is open, to my mind. But this is certainly a big setback. There's no doubt about it. We're disappointed, of course. We shouldn't be demoralized. So that site is, in the long run, going to take a lot of money to clean up. And the state and federal government have programs that clean up brownfield sites, but those programs are pretty deleted, so it's not as though it can go to the federal government or state government to get that done. NSTAR still owns the site. NSTAR still operates there. It's not a vacant site. They still have a couple of hundred employees there. It's just not a site that's fully utilized. They don't need as much space that they have available there. There's roughly 28 acres there. They don't need nearly that much. In the long run, we've got to work with them to clean it up. They are on the hook for the cleanup, but they're not on the hook unless they change the use or unless they sell the property.